Welcome back to the Ferrotech podcast. I'm Lindsay Deku. I am a senior account manager here at Ferrotech, and I'm joined again by our CEO, Chris Carr. Chris wrote a blog post recently on how to maximize your marketing budget. Great topic, and that is what we're going to be discussing today. So, Chris Carr, initial thoughts?
Well, I think the initial thought is that's probably the number one question that we get. It's very rare when someone comes to us and they say, hey, you know what, I've got an unlimited budget to spend on marketing. They're
Love those times.
Yeah. It's usually saying, I want a lot, and this is how much I'm willing to spend. And so we got to say, well, let's figure out the best way to get the most out of that. Specifically when you have a comprehensive marketing system, it's cheaper to just focus on one thing, but we just don't recommend that you do. And so, that's getting the most out of it is going to be, that's why you came to a company like us.
Right. Yeah. Everybody looks at marketing and they see all the different shiny objects and they think they have to do all of them all at one time. And that's rarely the case.
Yeah.
So, some of the things that you address in the blog post, let's start with the team-based approach.
Yep. So what I mean by a team-based approach, and we did a podcast, the last podcast that you and I did together, we talked about a team-based approach. Mm-hmm. And what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to go and I'm going to try to visit that again. So let me try to just get the slide in the right spot. Is that with a team-based approach, let me kind of expose the challenge first. All right. Usually what happens here is that I'm going to just share my screen real quick. In a team-based approach, usually what happens is someone will go and they'll have someone that's probably working for on their team, their existing team. And we kind of call that person Marketing Mary. And in Marketing Mary is going to do the best she possibly can, but it takes more hours in the day to possibly get done what she needs to get done. I mean, it requires subject matter experts to get on the first page of Google, to have a strong social media presence, to do paid ads, and to do all those things. And so in our last podcast, we talked about how Mary's going to have to hire multiple people, content writers and social media professionals and SEO and webmasters and graphic designers. And so either they're going to hire them internally or they're going to use multiple vendors. But what's going to happen here 9 times out of 10 is that they're going to need subject matter experts. And so you can pay to have these people on your team and you're going to be paying a whole lot of money, or you can focus on working with an agency like ours that has a team-based approach. Mm-hmm. And a team-based approach is going to allow you to have access to subject matter experts all through one account manager. But what's going to happen in that process is we're going to be able to you're only going to really need to use these subject matter experts as you need them, as opposed to paying their salaries and paying these full partnerships that you might not be able to use all of their time and energy for. So when you compare a team-based approach versus hiring internally or using multiple vendors, we usually come in at a deep discount. So when we're talking about maximizing when we talk about maximizing your approach, that's one of the things that I want to do is be in a scenario where people come in and then they get to use all of our team and all of our subject matter expertise to accomplish what they need to accomplish, as opposed to spending so much money on hiring internally.
Yeah, and you mentioned using multiple vendors, and I think that can get really expensive fast as well, but it's also frustrating because if you are the point of contact at your company, you have to deal with all these people individually. They don't talk to each other.
Yep.
I mean, I feel like, I don't know if all agencies do this, but we will absolutely work with another vendor on that with the clients that we have, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But if you have all these different companies that you have to get synergy and you're the middle person, that can be really frustrating and time consuming too.
I mean, let's just think about just general dependency. So if I say, what is the answer to question A? And I say, well, it's this to this. Well, that is going to spur on a whole different set of questions. So then you got to go back to the other vendor and say, well, now that I know this from vendor A, does that change what you said? And then you're just going back and forth trying to get on the same page. Or you're paying top dollar to have multiple vendors in the room just to get anything done.
Right.
That happens as well.
Yeah, and they have to jive with each other too. It can be really frustrating.
Yeah.
So the team-based approach, I like. Obviously, I think there are a ton of benefits. I think that, and I don't know what other agencies do. I know what a few agencies do, but with us, I know we each spend so much time innovating in our specific specialty that we like. I feel very proud to say that we are always like innovating and on the cutting edge, and even like looking past and looking to what the future, where the trends are going, which I think is really important. So I appreciate that Ferrotech invests in us to do that, because it really does. It helps our clients go further.
Well, I mean, like, just think about something like SEO Moz or Mozcast, right? So Mozcast is let me just see if I can find a slide for that too, because it's just really interesting when you just see what kind of goes into some of this process. So I'm going to share my screen one more time. Give me 1 second here. I lost my tab, and so I'm going to have to start again. So what's going to happen here is that something like Mozcast is set up so that, like, they're going to show every single algorithm change that happens. But there's literally a weather report on a daily basis to say how often is Google changing the algorithms? How are they changing the dials? And how does that impact what you've done, where you're going, where you've been, all that stuff like that. So if you figure that if Google controls almost all of SEO and a lot of, and pretty much all of, at least when we say paid advertising, at least paid advertising in the Google network, if those things are being adjusted on a daily basis, it's going to be extremely difficult for one point of contact, or basically that marketing Mary person, or that person in your company, to know everything that's changing at such a rapid pace and how to adjust. So that's just a small little teaspoon of what goes on in the background. So you need subject matter experts. Like, we have 2 people on our team that just focus on SEO, and they're looking at algorithm changes, and they're looking at how content impacts SEO, and they're constantly seeing, are the dials changing, and if so, what do we do about it?